I just wrapped your tattoo. You're gonna take that off in about an hour. When you take it off, you're gonna wash it and you're gonna reapply Andy on it. I'm gonna tell you how to wash it and I'm gonna tell you how to reapply Andy on it. And anytime during this explanation I say to wash it or apply Andy on it, that's what I mean. Okay. So first off, in an hour, that's when you're gonna take it off. So that's gonna be about 11 o'clock. So when you take it off, you wash it. The way to wash it is real simple. Hand plus water plus soap. That means no rags, no loofahs, no sponges, no paper towels, no napkins, no nothing but hand, water, and soap. Okay? The way you do it is put it on your hands, lather it up, put on the tattoo, rinse it off. Nothing else. If you do anything outside of that equation, you're doing it absolutely wrong. After you rinse it off, you have two options to dry it. You either A, let it air dry, or 2, pat it dry. After you wash it, you need to apply the Andy on it. I'll show you how much to put on there. So let's say it's this area right here. Get it right here so all these still people can see it. So see how much I just put on there? Like if this is tattoo area, see how much I just put on there? Spread it real thin, and then rub it in like it's lotion. If you put on too much, it's gonna over moisturize, it's gonna oversaturate the tattoo, and it's going to soak in the tattoo and pull the ink out. If you put on too little, it's gonna dry out, and the ink won't settle into the skin. So don't oversaturate and don't undersaturate. Okay, so do it the way I just told you. Spread it real thin, then rub it in like it's lotion. You wanna do that 2-3 times a day just whenever it feels dry. Now I said not to oversaturate it. It can get wet. It's supposed to get wet. You gotta be able to clean it. But when you're in the shower, you want to make sure that you do not let it be in there too long. If you're in there long enough for your hands to get all spongy and wrinkly, you've been there for too long. Since yours is on your foot, I suggest that when you take a shower, you kind of step away from the water as much as possible because you want to reduce the amount of water that's going to be hitting your foot. It can get wet, but you don't want it to get oversaturated because oversaturation means it's going to pull the ink out. I'm going to repeat that a couple times during this explanation too. So that means no baths, no saunas, no jacuzzis, no hot tubs. I think jacuzzis and hot tubs are the same thing. I'm not really sure. No anything that's going to submerge your foot in water. It also means if you're like one of the people that like to take really steaming hot showers, you should probably turn the temperature down a little bit at least while it's healing. So if you oversaturate, it's gonna become washed out. So be careful not to do that. Now I said to put the Andy on there 2 or 3 times a day, or just whenever it feels dry. You know it feels dry, and I say feels dry, not looks dry, and I'm gonna get to that later. You know it feels dry when it feels tight or it's not moving the rest of your skin. If it feels dry, and you go to put on Andy on there. Other than that, you want to put it in there 2 or 3 times a day. Okay. You don't want to use anything unless it's tattoo specific. If it's not Andy ointment and it's not tattoo specific, then you don't use it. That means no Vaseline. That's the worst thing to put on the tattoos. No vasectration, no antibiotic ointment, no this one nigga use Carmex. Don't do no dumb shit like that. If it's not Andy ointment, then don't use it. If it's not specifically made for tattoos, specifically made for tattoos mean like tattoo goo, green goo, Aquaphor, H2 Ocean. Those are made for tattoos. If it's not one of those, and there's some other products too that I'm not familiar with, but I know there's some more out there. If it's not specifically made for tattoos, then don't use it. And if you use Aquaphor and Andy ointment, make sure you do it 2 or 3 times a day, like I already told you. If you use something else, then make sure you follow the directions specifically how they said on there. I'm gonna express how bad Vaseline is for it. Vaseline does not soak into your skin. It clogs your pores and it just sits on top of the skin. It creates an oily base. That in turn traps bacteria into the tattoo if there's any on there, and it stops air from getting to it, and your tattoo needs air in order to heal. So if anybody ever tells you to put Vaseline on a tattoo, they're stupid. Tell them I said so. You want to keep it out of the sun as much as possible. The sun, especially when it's fresh, it's gonna burn your tattoo. It's gonna feel like it's burning. It's gonna feel like it's baking your tattoo. But also, the bleach your tattoo is gonna be a lot lighter than it would have been if you kept it out of the sun. Anything that touches your foot needs to be clean. That means hands, that means clothes, that means people, that means bed sheets, that means anything such needs to be clean. If it comes in contact with something that's not clean, then you need to clean it and reapply ND on it. Now, if you can't clean it with soap and water, you have another option. You can clean it with alcohol and or hand sanitizer, something with 50% alcohol or more. If you do that, do it the same way you clean your hands. Just a little thin, rub it in. It might burn. I mean, it might get warm, but it's not going to burn. And with those, you don't have to worry about drying it off because alcohol evaporates. Oh yeah, you want to reduce the amount of friction that hits your tattoo, especially you got this one on your foot. You probably want to wear some shoes that's light. You don't want to do anything that's gonna create a lot of friction on your tattoo. Friction on your tattoo is bad, so anything that's gonna be rubbing up against your tattoo can potentially pull out the ink before it's done settling into your skin. So probably don't want to wear no real tight ass, rough ass socks. No. If you got tennis shoes, you don't want to tie them real tight. You probably want to wear sandals if you can. Something that's not going to create a lot of friction on the tattoo. You're going to enter what I like to call the ugly phases. There's 3 of them. And sometime before then, it's going to start to itch. Sometime between now and then, it's going to start to itch. So when it starts to itch, you have 2 options. Option number 1 is if it's dry and only if it feels dry, you can put on anti ointment and rub it in until it stops itching. Now, if that doesn't work, you have option B, is to pat it like girls do they weave. You know what I'm saying? I know you know what I'm talking about. It's okay. Just, you can smack it. I used to smack the fuck out of my tattoos. Feels like heaven. So, other than that, no scratching, no rubbing, no pinching, no biting, nothing of the sort. If it's not rubbing it and deodorant, it's not smacking it, don't do it. Any kind of friction whatsoever on your tattoo is bad for your tattoo. It can potentially pull out ink, and it probably will. Now, when you get to the ugly phases, ugly phase number 1 is the part where it starts to look all dry and clammy, and it starts looking like it's almost ready to scab. Now, at this point is where most people mess up. A lot of people, when they get to this point, they start just gobbing on the A&D ointment. Now, I already told you, make sure you rub it in like lotion, okay? Most people just put it on top of the skin. You gotta make sure you rub it in lotion. But at this point, especially during this point, it's important to follow the directions how I already told you to put on AD on it, because a lot of people just put it on there because they feel like it makes it look better. Fuck how it looks right now. It's called the ugly phase. That's why I call it the ugly phase. Fuck how it looks right now. You need to take care of it the proper way. And put on AD on it lightly, spread it, and rub it in like lotion. If you oversaturate it, especially during this phase when it's actually starting to go into the skin, it's going to oversaturate and pull the ink out before it settles into the skin. You don't want that. And also during these phases, it's especially important to reduce the amount of friction that's already going into your foot, because at this point, if anything forces the scab off, it's going to pull ink with it. Ugly phase number 2 is when it starts to peel and it starts to look all extra crusty and shit. Now, the reason I said if it feels dry is because during these 2 phases, most people will feel like it looks dry. It doesn't necessarily have to be dry for it to look dry. For it to look dry. So if it feels dry, like it's tight and it's not moving the skin during these 2 phases, that's when you put an anti on there. Do not overdo it. Now, if you put on anti ointment while it's peeling and the scab comes off, it's fine. If you put on, if you're washing it and the scab comes off, that's fine. Other than that, you don't want to let anything pull the scab off. That means if you're rubbing up against somebody, you know what I'm talking about. I know you know what I'm talking about. If you got a cat like to jump on your foot, you put on your socks and shoes, whatever, anything rubbing up against it might pull the scab off. You want to make sure you reduce all that friction. You don't want anything to pull out the scab off prematurely. It's going to pull ink with it. Also, during this phase, you want to still put on Andy 2 or 3 times a day, or whenever it feels dry. And don't overdo it. Same thing as the last phase. Spread it thin, rub it in like lotion. Overdoing it still during this phase is still take out ink. It might not take out as much ink, but it still take out ink. So you still want to be careful about that. Ugly phase number 3 is after it's done peeling. You're gonna get to that point where it's just looking ashy. it's gonna be all dry around the edges and all that stuff. Now, it's important to either keep on using the Andy ointment or switch to like a healing type of lotion. I'm just going to expedite the healing process, like Curel, Vaseline lotion, Lubriderm, you know, those lotions with the vitamins A and E in it. I personally use cocoa butter or shea butter because those are, you know, awesome for skin, I think. Anyway, you want to do that as often as you did the Andy ointment, or just whenever it looks or feels dry. You want to do it until it gets to the point where it looks like regular skin. For most people, it's done peeling within 2 or 3 weeks, but to completely heal from inside and out, it takes 45 days. What the fuck is this phone? I think I've said everything. You have any questions?
Well, you answered mine because I was going to ask, like, how long does it usually take when you said 45 days?
Yeah, that's normally everybody's question. But nobody ever lets me get to it before they ask me.